Sorry, welcome everybody. I hit the wrong button here. Welcome everybody to another episode where I ask, what's up with the universe? It would actually help if I turn on my camera. So, hello everybody. And I believe my camera's freezing, so I apologize about that. I guess I might have to do this without my camera. Okay, well, you guys see my icon here. I want to thank everybody for joining me today as we ask what's up with the universe. Today we are talking about the moon. Yes, on this channel we talk astrophysics, astronomy, science. You know, that thing like magic but real. I am your host, Eli Hugh. And if you can look for me on Twitter, all you have to do is search those two little words and you'll find me exactly. Today we are actually talking about the moon. Yes, we are. The moon. To the moon. And I want to welcome Vile Mike, who is actually first in the chat today during this live stream. Hello, Vile Mike. Yes, I know you didn't have to hit the wrong button. But we are talking about the moon today. Did you know that we have looked up at the moon since before even recorded history? I mean, you have cultural tales going back to the Stone Ages, all the way to Sumeria, Babylon, ancient Greece. There are stories of people going to the moon via ropes, or birds, or gods. They're told in every part of the globe. But about 50 years ago, we actually sent a human to the moon. Yes, we actually sent a human to the moon. More than one human, to be exact. This is basically some stuff about the moon. First of all, let me actually tell you a little bit of facts about the moon here. The average distance from the Earth to the moon is 238,855 miles. That's 384,400 kilometers for everybody who does not use the metric system. The orbital rotational period is 27.32 days, Earth days. And I'm not going to highlight that comment file on my 8 because everybody wants me to go to Mars, not the moon. The mass of the moon is, get this, it's easy to remember. It's 0.0123 of Earth. It's about a bit more than 1%. 1%. So the gravity is 0.166 of Earth's. So that means if you weigh 100 pounds or 45 kilograms on Earth, you would weigh 16.6 pounds or 7.5 kilograms on the moon. But don't forget your parka because it gets very cold on the moon. It's about an average of minus 414 to 253 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 248 to 123 degrees Celsius. And it's also moving away from the Earth at approximately 1.5 inches every year. The moon itself, it's one of the very cornerstones of planetary science. I mean, without plate tectonics or weather to erase evidence of its past, our closest neighbor in space preserves a record of geological history. It's basically shaped our solar system, including our own planet. See, evidence suggests about 4.5 billion years ago, a Mars-sized object crashed into the early Earth. This basically, all the debris here from this impact, likely formed the moon. As you can see here in this NASA animation, And yes, there is such a thing as moonquakes. Moonquakes happen. Compared to Earth, the moon is quietly an active world. Tidal forces, meteoroid impacts, and thermal changes in rock near the surface all trigger seismic disturbances. The coldest temperature in the solar system have been recorded on the moon's poles. I mean, some of the poles' craters, darkened by permanent shadows, they harbor hidden ice water. Yes, H2O. Like I said, not just one human has walked on the moon, 12 humans have walked on the moon. All the astronauts in NASA's Apollo program in the 1960s and 70s. And of course, plans are still underway, are in the future for more future NASA missions called the Artemis program. The lunar terrain itself, the light areas on the moon are known as the highlands. The dark features called maria, which is Latin for seas, they are impact basins that were filled with lava between 4.2 and 1 billion years ago, as you saw in the previous animation. I mean, these light and dark areas, they represent rocks of different composition and ages, which actually prove evidence for how the Earth crust may have crystallized from a lunar magma ocean. I mean, the craters themselves, which have been preserved for billions of years, they provide an impact history for the moon and other bodies in the inner solar system. Nearly the entire moon is covered by a rubble pile of charcoal gray powdery dust and rocky debris that is called lunar regolith. Of course, beneath the region of fractured bedrock referred to as the mega regolith. Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast drunk. Like traveling to the moon, it was the long stuff of dreams and science fiction, basically reserved for Hollywood. I mean, many people thought the surface of the moon would look a little bit like Earth. Many thought it was made of cheese. I mean, for basic example, the dark patches, like I said, they were given the name Maria because they were often mistaken by seas as early astronomers. Of course, surprising much of the world, the Soviet Union took some of the earliest steps in exploring the moon close up. They were first. They brought a lot of knowledge back to humanity. For instance, Luna 2, it taught us that the lunar soil was hard enough that we would not sink. Luna 3, it showed us that the far side had many fewer seas and was composed of mostly highlands. The Luna 9, it brought back the first pictures from the surface of the moon itself. Luna 10, it made an astonishing 460 lunar orbits and sent back approximately 220 data transmissions itself. If you're wondering about this picture, the left side of the picture here, this was the first side of the far side of the moon. This was taken by Luna 3rd on October 7th, 1959. I know. Of course, America was kind of shocked that the they launched, USSR launched a satellite called Sputnik, and it basically further put Soviets in the higher achievements in space than Americans did. Early on, President Kennedy, he gave the nation a very rousing speech. And this is what he basically said.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
Not because they are easy, because they are hard. September 12th, 1962. I could have quoted it, but I'd rather have Mr. President speak it himself better. A lot easier. I mean, spurred by Sputnik surprise in the 60s, it was difficult and reliably launched anything into Earth. I mean, let alone we can send a spacecraft to the moon. The Ranger lunar orbiter and surveyor programs of lunar exploration were designed to address this problem using uncrewed spacecraft. I mean, as these missions were the absolute leading edge of rocket space. The Ranger program was developed to design and send a spacecraft to the moon. Its primary goal was to reach the moon, and its 3 successful missions crashed as intended into the lunar surface. But the landing a human safely on the moon, like President Kennedy suggested, had a more troublesome crash. Obviously, it had to be more advanced than just a crash landing. The lunar orbiters, they were developed to put a spacecraft into lunar orbit, and from that vantage point, to begin to systematically mapping the moon's surface. And Corin, again, come on.
Hey, what's happening? This is Cornemic, and I'm talking to you from my backyard. Just signed up for Cameo app. Sean asked and told me that's what all the cool kids are doing. So I'm just trying to be one of the cool kids. But I am dedicated to this. Dedicated to leaving you a message, no matter what the conditions are. That's why I'm doing this in the rain, to prove to you how serious I am about this. I mean, I will give you a shout out from a train. You know, I'll give a shout out to you while I'm on a plane. I'll give a shout out to you from a car. I'll give a shout out to you from a dive bar. In fact, I heard that David Faustino's on here as well. He said that he was going to give some weird and creepy shout outs, but I challenge him. You want a weird and creepy shout out? Came to the right place, buddy.
Creepy? Dude, I'm talking about the moon, man. Creepy? Sheesh, dude. Look, guys might as well get a cameo from Cornemic. I'll put his little link in the description, guys, so you guys can click on it, get one from Cameo from Corin. So maybe he'll stop interrupting my damn show. Okay, we was talking about landing a human on the moon, safely on the moon. Having learned how to send a spacecraft into lunar orbit, the next step was to try to softly landing on the moon's surface, where a spacecraft could do so. Basically, surface imaging with rudimentary science. The survey programs themselves, these demonstrated how to do this. Incredibly, the Apollo 12 lunar module landed close to Surveyor 3, with astronauts visiting the older spacecraft and returning its camera to the Earth. I mean, the second challenge itself was to develop the spacecraft and techniques to allow humans to live and work in space, and on a prolonged voyage to the moon and back. See, the first of these programs, Mercury, it was designed to develop the spacecraft and human capacity for achieving Earth orbit. Following 2 suborbital flights, 4 spacecraft actually achieved Earth's orbit, with John Glenn himself, former Senator John Glenn, being the very first U.S. citizen to orbit the Earth inside the Friendship 7 capsule, making him the second human to orbit the Earth, unlike Yuri Gagarin. Of course, going to the moon requires more than just lifting off from Earth and pointing the spacecraft in the right direction. Boom! Nope. Landing on the moon would require a second module to separate while in the lunar orbit. It has to then descend and land on the surface, and then blast back off again to rejoin the orbiting module. Then after all that, the spacecraft would then need to leave lunar orbit to return to the Earth. The Gemini itself program, it basically involved 2 astronauts aboard a larger spacecraft. I can't even talk. The Gemini program featured the very first spacewalk for an American astronaut, flying information with the second capsule, and test docking procedures to allow for movement between the 2 conjoined spacecraft. All 10 Gemini missions were a success. They had to practice before they actually did this. The Apollo program itself, it was basically in charge of producing a spacecraft with the capability of supporting a crew of 3 to a journey to the moon and back. It had 6 successful lunar landings. The Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And they had the one to return to Earth after the explosion, and the surface module crippled the spacecraft, which was Apollo 13, and they made a very good movie about it. Apollo 7 was the initial test flight with humans aboard onto Earth's orbit, and Apollo 10, it was a test flight to the moon itself, with the lunar module performing a test run towards, but not landing on the lunar surface. The Apollo timeline, like I stated, it did experience a setback and a tragedy on June 27th, 1967, when a fire broke out in the crew of the compartment of the Apollo 1 capsule during a pre-flight test on a launch pad. It actually resulted in the deaths of 3 astronauts who got trapped inside: Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chafe. They are actually honored every January 31st on the NASA Day of Remembrance. So please mark your calendars and help remember them. Of course, along with the astronauts who lost their lives on the Challenger and the Columbia space shuttles. After the Apollo 1 fire happened, NASA introduced safety measures. They introduced a delay into mission timelines as NASA redesigned the safety features with a new crew compartment. They had modifications, and after 2 uncrewed test flights, they wanted to make sure it was safe for humans. Apollo 7 launched into Earth's orbit on October 11th, 1968. Just 2 months later, December 21st, 1968, Apollo launched the first human-crewed flight to the moon. I mean, the next 2 Apollo missions prepared NASA for putting all these pieces together. This right here is the iconic image Earthrise. It was taken by Bill Anders from Apollo 8 as it orbited the Earth's moon. And I want you guys to take a full look at this video. This is not thousands of images put together. This is actual video of Earthrise. What you just saw and what you just heard is exactly what the Apollo 8 astronauts experienced. They were complete silent as they watched the Earth rise. I want you to have the exact same experience the astronauts themselves had. Less than a year, basically, after the Apollo Earth orbit, the Apollo 11 blasted off to the moon on July 16th, 1969. Early on July 20th, the lunar module landed on the Tranquility Base while Michael Collins orbited the moon in the module in the capsule. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin took a short little walk, and of course, you guys all remember Neil Armstrong, right?
Buzz, this is Houston. F2, 1/160th second for shadow photography on the sequence camera. Okay. At the foot of the ladder, the LEM footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches, although the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. I'm going to step off the LEM now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, they spent a total of 21.5 hours on the lunar surface. They performed one EVA, which is an extravehicular activity. Sorry about the acronyms, guys. They collected about 47 pounds of lunar samples, rocks, and dust, which is about 21.5 kilograms for everybody who is not using the metric system. Apollo 12 also saw a very successful moon landing. Of course, like I stated before, every journey includes some stumbles, especially when you're taking on a journey as one of the most complex machines that humans ever built. The lunar launch modules and the launch pads. I mean, 2 days after the launch of Apollo 13, on April 13th, in 1970, well on our way to the moon, an explosion in the oxygen tank and the actual service module itself, it crippled the spacecraft. After much debate and investigation itself, it was determined that the safest course of action was to use the moon's gravity to send the spaceship on a return trajectory back to Earth, like a slingshot. It succeeded, of course, and the astronauts returned to Earth on April 17th. This is an image, actually image from the NASA Space Mission Operations Control Room. Sorry, trying not to use acronyms right now for you guys. This is the when it was in the tense moment, actual picture. Following the near tragedy of Apollo 13, the next lunar mission, Apollo 14, it launched on January 13th, 1971. The final 4 Apollo lunar landings produced a great deal of science and also demonstrated technical innovations such as the lunar rover vehicle. It was used on Apollo 15, 16, and 17. And this is the anniversary of the Apollo 15 missions. And if you look in the description below, you'll be able to find some of the 16mm video footage from the actual Apollo 15 missions on the description below. Apollo 17 also features the first scientist/astronaut. He was a geologist. His name is Harrison Schmitt. All 6 lunar landings returned a total of, get this, 842 pounds of moon rock and soil, which is 382 kilograms. And yes, most of them is missing. That is a fact. Most of the moon rocks are missing. In a total of 42 months, 12 humans have set foot on the moon. 12 others remained either in orbit or flew by, like Apollo 13. And on December 15th, 1972, 3 astronauts left left the near moon environment to return to Earth. Since then, no one has yet returned. 1972. I mean, the direction of NASA's programming has changed. Yes, it has. The following Apollo robotic missions were instead set beyond the moon to distant planets. I mean, in the 90s, NASA embarked on a very ambitious program of using robotic lunar exploration. They had many objectives and taught us much about our nearest neighbors as well as our own home planet. And I'm only going to tell you about a few of them because there are hundreds. For instance, in 1994, Clementine provided our first complete look at the lunar surface, including the poles itself. And that's where we found the hidden frozen ice and the coldest part of the solar system. In 1998, the Lunar Prospector data showed an estimated 6 billion tons of water ice trapped in the shadows of the lunar pole regions. This is the first time in 1998 we found water ice on another body besides Earth. In 2009, one of the LROs, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, its discoveries was the super cold temperatures at the permanently shadowed craters of the moon's south pole. This is when we actually discovered the coldest region in our solar system at minus 397 degrees Fahrenheit. It's even colder than Pluto. Yeah, that is. Launched with the LRO and Lacrosse, they launched into a permanently dark floor of a polar crater. I mean, these missions, they found evidence that the lunar surface within the shadowy craters is rich in useful material. And of course, then the moon is chemically active and has a water cycle. I mean, scientists also confirmed that water was in the form of mostly pure ice crystals in some places. In 2011, the twin Grail probes orbiting Earth's moon generated the highest resolution gravity field map of any celestial body, not even Earth. The gravity field map, it basically revealed an abundance of features that was never seen before, such as tectonic structures, volcanic landforms, basin rings, crater central peaks, and a few simple craters. In 2013, the LADEE, L-A-D-E-E, studied the moon's exosphere. Yes, the moon has an exosphere. It's an atmosphere that's so thin, collide with each other. The LADEE's instruments, it also helped further study of other planetary bodies within its exosphere, such as Mercury and some of Jupiter's moons. I mean, space agencies around the world, they have now endeavored into a lunar playing field, basically. Japan became the third country to place an object in orbit around the moon in 1990. China and India a few years ago planned the third and fourth soft landing on the moon. And China actually accomplished landing a rover on the far side of the moon, called Chang'e 4. Like I said, the last time humans landed on the moon was in December 1972. I mean, we need to actually explore even more and more places. I mean, human exploration has just begun, and it all started with the moon itself. Yeah, sorry. I think that's very, very funny. And if she's watching this, she's going to see this file, Mike. But I want to thank everybody, even Jeff B., who wants to hit some golf balls on the moon. He won't be the only one. I want to thank everybody for joining today, and I apologize about the cam because my connection is a little... Oops, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yay, my camera worked. Yay, thank you, everybody. Okay, if you have not subscribed yet, please remember to subscribe. And if you liked this video, hit thumbs up. If not, hit thumbs down. Make a comment in the comments why you hit the thumbs down. Even for the hell of it, hey, who cares? It's science. You like it, you don't like it. So, and don't forget to share this video with everybody and let people know I talk about science. You know, I think like magic but real. Bye.